Welcome to the Be Battle Ready podcast, where we take a deep dive into what it takes to be battle ready in your lifestyle so that you can go to war on your life and the marketplace and win.
All right. I want to welcome on Chris Thorndike to the Be Battle Ready podcast. He's with Factory Forge. They are a consulting company, and they have a program for micro gyms. And you know what? This is one of the podcasts I'm excited for. Chris and I met through a mastermind back 2010, and it was a fun mastermind because it was very competitive, and we collaborated and we helped each other out and stuff. And we ended up, kind of working. I started supporting him on a program inside that mastermind, as a consultant and stuff. And, he actually went off and started his own consulting company with one of the other guys in there. So I want to welcome on. I always love talking to Chris. We think alike. We, have a lot of common interests, and just a straight up good dude. So welcome on, Chris.
Cool. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to dive into whatever we're diving into. It's an awesome opportunity just to talk with people that are hungry, excited, and passionate about growing businesses. So let's do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Why don't you tell a little more about, expand about, who you are, where you come from, all about you,
Yeah, sure. Really just career-wise where I got started, I had a big interest in fitness early on. I'd say, that was really my passion. I knew at 12 years old, I wanted to work in the fitness industry and specifically build gyms. I just always had a mindset for wanting to understand how things work, the process side of it. I geek out on how things work. And it's just, ever since you've known, you probably, knew that, but it's just I like understanding how to optimize and create really great strategies. And a lot of people come to me for, taking an idea and turning it into something that works. And that's what I really love doing and passionate about. So, when I was 22, I was going to school at University of Florida, studying business management, real estate finance, and, really just trying to learn as much as I could so that I could apply a lot of that understanding to the gym industry. And if you guys ever, been involved in gym industry, there's not super high margins. It's really this passion, this energy for helping people. And, it's really a lifestyle company is what I would call it. So I want to make sure that I understood how to live a life that was similar to someone else's career, but also provided all the luxuries and time that business ownership did. So that's kind of that problem that I set this quest out. And then that was 13 years ago now that I started my gym, and that's kind of evolved in itself. And then probably about 5 years into gym ownership, I started innovating systems and processes and finding better ways to do it. And then that's when I got really interested in teaching people what was working for me. And it kind of evolved into this need and want to do something bigger than just my single location. And how could I start impacting, people that cater to these 200-person gyms and start having this movement, this connection to other people that we could impact more lives. And now more than ever, I feel being in the pandemic, people need coaches more than ever. So we need to be sharp in terms of running our business, keeping our life in check, and then really being able to do what we do best is, connect with people that need our help. So that's what I aim to do with Factory Forge, was to provide that foundation for, building out your company in a strategic way, making sure there's a step-by-step process to guide you through it so you can stay on track, and then really get to the end result that you want from a personal income and lifestyle standpoint.
Awesome. Yeah. One of the reasons I'm excited to talk to you because about that, what you said is, how do you take something that's a vision of somebody and turn it into reality? How do you, how do you do that in a way that is, efficient and effective and also scalable, and actually, at the end of the day, we have common passion of I believe that, I want to help create more families that are able to spend time together. And I think business ownership in itself is the number one way. It's not, for me, it's not about ego. It's just about how do you bring more families together and make them prosperous, right? Meaning much time they can spend on what they choose to do, the experiences they get to have, and, just the overall development of, themselves and the family. So.
Totally. I can connect on that. And, a lot of small businesses starting out, and you can probably attest to this, it's a grind, and you put a ton of hours in, a lot of effort. And, if you have a family and you're starting a business, it really does test every, balancing point of, do I have enough to make this work? Will my family not feel neglected, or am I being the best father I could possibly be while having to juggle all this other stuff? So, man, like, if you're not cut for really that level of stress and a level of, tasks in your life and managing all that comes with it, it could be overwhelming. And that's why a lot of businesses fail within the first 5 years.
Yeah. I mean, the amount of, I can definitely understand, like, when I was running my gym, didn't have a family, right? We got married halfway through, but we didn't have kids until, we were in our 8th year of ownership and all that. And then, life took us a different way, and we don't have the gym anymore. But having a business where now we're running from home and having the kids and having those responsibilities and taking kids, all over the place, it becomes a challenge to actually grow. I've been a part of a men's group, that basically works with married businessmen with children, and the dysfunction and the chaos and all that. And the leader of that program, his name is Garrett J. White. He has a saying that the trifecta of insanity is owning a business, being married, and having kids. And he said the bonus, if you're super crazy, you can appreciate that, you actually own the business and run the business with your spouse. So so we both can understand that, and the challenges that come with that, and how do you really, give everything, how do you spread yourself and become more, right, throughout your whole life, and give enough attention to your business and your family and your kids and yourself.
Yeah. And I think that's the rush of what I'm drawn to about business ownership, is like that challenge of making it work. And, I think there's 3 things that I posted on this the other day. I was kind of like reflecting on what keeps me successful and, focused. And it really comes back to health. And I think, when I looked at being involved in a company, I wanted to make sure it aligned with always keeping me healthy, or at least focused on that long term. Because I look the best and I feel the best when I'm exercising and having a routine. And you look at most, successful business owners, they have some form of health routine, some form of reflecting back on, challenges and problems and trying to get better. And when I know that I'm focused on my health, I just seem to do better work. And then also, if I do better work, it makes me prioritize my time better. And that's where I start seeing the benefit, for family life, and knowing that I've got like that trifecta of, like, I'm personally well, therefore I can give more to, my business, give more to my family. And a lot of it, like you said, there's just the logistics of making it all work, whether it's schedules, whether, it's divvying up roles, with significant others or employees, so that you really wake up every day and you love what you do. And I'm very convinced that, like, when you look at yourself as, yes, an owner, but then also an employee within your company, it helps tremendously to see that you have a real responsibility to show up and, like, give to your company in the way that your skill set and your experience is.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of lines get blurred, and people don't think of that when you work for your company. And I even treated, even paying yourself like an actual paycheck, right?
Right.
And distinguishing that, and treating yourself like an employee is very crucial in having those distinct structure in place, no matter where it's at. But so I know that you're working with gym owners, right? So like, how are you dealing with, like, talk to us about like growth in these uncertain times? Like what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. Honestly, it's like the wild, wild west. And I'm working with gyms all over the world now, and the majority are here in the States. However, every market is different. And that's what the crazy thing about this is like, I'm here in Florida, Texas and California seem to have like this close connection of media, pumping out the numbers of infected, people and test numbers. And that has a significant impact on the local businesses, especially service businesses that are getting, walk-in traffic in order to serve their customers, or, they have to go out and pick up products. And it's just amazing to see how some businesses are thriving, while there's also a significant portion like gyms that are really at the mercy of something outside their control. So no matter, what you do in terms of pivoting, like virtually every small gym, like we work with functional, fitness gyms and CrossFit gyms, and, they had to change their model overnight, like to shut down for 3 months. And most, small businesses, they don't have reserves. The average household doesn't even have reserves for more than, a month. And it's like, that puts so much strain. And if you didn't have margins to begin with that were, able to get you through it, Anthony, we're at a time where I think this next 8 weeks is going to be so critical, because PPP loans are, coming undone. All that money's going away, or used up. And then, we don't know what's going to happen with the virus and what the recommendations are. So it's completely about focusing on what you can control. And, that, I think that's the principle in a lot of situations, but now more than ever, because it's easy to get latched into, let's just say, the news and, everything's, dreary and negative. And if you really get sucked into that, you can forget that there's also a lot of opportunity right now. And that's what we're trying to focus on is making sure that we're positioned in a way to absolutely weather this storm. But I'll say this to you, and a lot of people may not like this, but I actually think the gym industry needed this, at least in a sense of fine-tuning everything inside your business to be efficient, to be not excessive, because I think there was a lot of fluff. And what I mean by that is massive facilities. Now everybody has to box athletes into these safety zones, and they're realizing they don't need all that space. They don't need all this, countless members coming through the door. They need the people that are committed. They need the people that are willing to put forth the effort and stay long-term. So you have to get better at skills. And what I mean by that is keeping your clients happier, doing things you probably haven't done in a while. You need to understand who will be committed. So you have to get good at enrollment. You have to get good at lead generation, marketing skills. So it's going to make us a better industry. And that's something that I'm really passionate about being a part of. Is like I've wanted to do that for years. That is my purpose. Is to start getting really high level skills in the gym industry. We're more than just coaches.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, going back to the boxes. I mean, as example of being like dialed in and having your all your things together at the gym. I mean, that was something that we saw people in our group, in the past do, like, set to make it more organized, to make the gym more efficient, put like actual things on the floor so you can separate things off. Yeah. And I find it funny too, that now that's there, it just reminds me of that, but also like, one of the biggest opportunities, and I know, a mentor of mine really capitalized on it, was nutrition, right? Like one of the things that the gym owners they overlook, they focus so much on the group workouts, they neglected the nutrition side of it. And actually bringing like a nutrition specialist on board, or figuring out a strategic partnership that way that would complete the life cycle of the client, right? Like, I know my mentor, right, coach, built his business like massively by strategic partnerships, being a nutrition coach for, coming and doing seminars and, giving back to the gym and partnering with the gyms on that. And, that was something that I saw a while ago, being a part of it. So
you're touching on, like some of the struggling businesses are having to reinvent revenue streams, reinvent skill sets right now. And yeah, in the gym world, nutrition is something that you don't need four walls to do. And it's making people really rethink, these massive rents or square footages that, maybe it's time to contract. And, I would say the same thing. This is an interesting parallel to restaurants. Like a lot of restaurants essentially can't have, they're getting 25%. I think we started out with capacity, then 50%, but it takes 80% capacity to pay the bills. So how the heck do you survive on that? So a lot of them are getting turned into takeout, but they don't need the square footage anymore. So they're like kitchens. And that's the same thing with a lot of these businesses is they have to go through this model of saying, how do we restructure it so the math works, the numbers work? And that's, I think, the state we're in right now, because there's this hope that when will the pandemic end so that we can go back to doing things the old way? And the hope is that the numbers will come back in terms of customers. But that's the biggest part, where if you try to game that and just say, I'm all in and I'm going to double down on an EIDL loan, or I'm going to, use all my savings, and it doesn't happen in that time, that's gambling. So right now it's about taking a look at what is working. And I think in bringing those revenue streams on and trying to cut costs and really lean out, because right now we don't know what's happening with funding with the government. And we also don't know, at least in the gym industry, it varies by city, by county, by state on what they feel like releasing. And it's really hard. I was having a conversation with someone the other day, one of my marketing directors, and we were just talking about, as a small business, you have so much reach, and you can buy reach and you can put out content. But when you start really competing with major news sources saying this is unsafe and that's unsafe, they're driving fear into consumers. That how do you counter that? How do you really overcome something like that? So we're forced to get really creative right now.
Yeah, and we trying to predict if they'll come back. People might go home, work out at home, and change their whole habit and their pattern and their programming, right? What they needed before and what they were accustomed to before. Now they're forced to change their programming, and now they're working out at home. Like, well, I don't really need that anymore. I don't need that environment. That's a possibility as well.
Yeah, a friend of mine sent me this article. It was like 69% of people surveyed said they will not renew their gym memberships after the pandemic. And what's interesting is I think that maybe this like new onset of home working out, and like people, like you can't buy fitness equipment for what you used to, right? Like everything is off the shelves and like everything's going for a premium because they're, everyone's working out at home. And there's a certain part of me as being a long-term coach, and you probably can attest to this, where not everyone can be a self-starter, self-motivated person. And, I'd say the majority of people more than ever, need a coach. They need someone to guide them, keep them on track, be able to steer them with the right information, cut through, stuff that doesn't matter, that's a distraction, and really focus them. And that focus leads to the end result that they want faster. And I think people will always want that, that guidance, that level of support. It's just going to look different than, say, going to the gym. And one of the fastest growing, I'd call fitness businesses actually at home or mobile personal training, because you're, again, recognizing that people don't want to spend, large group numbers. But then this opportunity is you don't need to carry an overhead of, of a building, square footage, all that stuff that goes along with it. And you can go to your personal clients and charge a premium, and there's people out there. So I think stuff like that is really saying, can I pivot and give up maybe the way I love to serve my client? And if you're truly a coach, I actually think you can apply that skill set in any format And when it does come back, maybe that's when the studio grows or the facility, opens back up. But that's how I'm thinking about it right now, is really putting my clients in a position where how do we do as close to what we love when you know that you're getting forced to change and adapt. And if you don't adapt, I think you're going to die.
Yeah, I mean, we were kind of talking before the show about, like management and leadership in these harder times. And, since you are, I mean, you're going to have personal relationships with everybody. So what about, like, what are you experiencing there, with the gyms and, what's your advice there and how are you building strategies and all that to navigate that?
As far as employees go?
Yeah, team members, employees.
Yeah, I think this is where it's going to get hard for a lot of people, where, when you think about growing at least a small service business, you start off largely as owner operator. And then you start seeing that you can't hustle at the same number of hours and still, be the best leader for your company and grow it. So you take on that first employee. And then you actually end up buying yourself time to work on other aspects of the company. And then it kind of grows, and then you find this, good groove of I've got time back, and then I've got this focus to largely focus on marketing, lead follow-up, sales, stuff like that, at least in the coaching industry. And all of a sudden, you've developed this team and these relationships with people that you love and you care about, and they've helped provide this great lifestyle, and hopefully the income's there. But if consumer confidence drops, and membership revenue drops, the numbers have to make sense. So what do you end up cutting? And a lot of owners are forced right now to say, well, could I reduce my rent? Could I reduce my size of my facility? There's a lot of moving parts to doing that. And then, frankly, one of the easiest things to cut is you go through the operating expenses and you cut software, you cut all this other stuff. And then the only thing left over, and I think this is the last thing that, the government wants, and this is why the whole PPP, and everything else was put out there. But this next 8 weeks, I think the hard part is letting go of some of your key employees, and they're going to get dropped to part-time. They're going to get dropped altogether. And those owners have to make that decision of whether they go back to how they started. And some of them are going to say it's not worth it. It's not, I'm not doing 17-hour days. Because I think this is the last bit of it, is that in some businesses, the money's there, but that money was put into team members, and those team members created the opportunity and time for the owner to do other growth activities. But again, if there's fear in the market, consumers aren't, there, then you've got to have that hard conversation about, hey, here's where we're at. This is, something that we're pivoting to. And it may be, like you brought up, the online nutrition side, but there may not be enough room for your employees to come with you. And what I mean by that, largely, that's like starting a new business within a business. So it takes time to learn it, acquire clients, get it up to enough that it has scale and room for an administrator or something like that. So I think in many ways, Anthony, it's like the business is hitting a reset button and going back to, think of how, like in my industry, gyms start with like personal training. Like I started doing one-on-one. It was my first client. And then I got a second client, a third client. Then it turned into a small group. Then it turned into a large group. And then that's where the scale started happening. And then it reminds me of like going back to the start and rebuilding it and making sure everything's leaned out, making sure, this time it continues to work with, kids and marriage and some of the stuff I didn't have when I first started.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think that's when you're, these small gyms, even small restaurants are kind of in the same boat, right? You're so susceptible to any outside forces, right? That, and it's just a threat, right? You've tried to create this life that's, with the freedom, the enjoyment, the passion, the impact and stuff. But when you get this, and you don't have you generally don't start with deep pockets, don't eventually ever really get to deep pockets unless you've really scaled to bigger and, big organization, but with the smaller, you're so susceptible to threats in this.
Yeah.
And back to that beginning, like, dude, yeah, that could break a lot of people.
And you're seeing the big businesses go through it too. They're some of the bigger companies that cut faster than the smaller ones. And, there's a lot of opportunity out there too, because you see companies being really creative and, coming up with solutions like restaurants moving everybody outside and still trying to get the number of heads through the door that they were accustomed to so they can hit their numbers. And then the gyms, even a lot of in California, I have clients out there, they're in New York, they're literally pulling their gyms, their floors under tents and spacing them out. And because the guidelines say you can't be indoors. And if you're going to run group class and it takes, 10 people to cover operating expenses and you got to hit 15 to be profitable, how else are you going to get that done if they're capping inside? So it's just so interesting to see how long will this last? Because at that point, like if you get that creative and you're that gym owner that's like outdoors, if you can do that in a park, if you can do that, for the next 6 months, if this lasts that long or a year, why the heck do you need that real estate? Why do you need that rental expense? And are you willing to float that just to hold on to something? It's like a storage locker for equipment.
Yeah.
So that's the piece that I'm excited about in terms of, yes, this is putting a lot of pressure, a lot of stress on us, but I think the end result is going to be, we will be sharper entrepreneurs. We will have more efficient businesses. And I think we're going to learn to level up our service and what it really means to provide quality coaching in a time where people feel like they can do it on their own. They explain that, they have to cut expenses because their own jobs. And we have to prove that we're worth keeping on that personal budget.
Yeah. I mean, obviously the name of the show is Being Battle Ready, offer working with businesses to become battle ready. And, one of the things that, we have a common how we look at things is strategic planning and playing the 90-day world and, making sure we have that on top. And I just want to, you're talking about thinning the herd and then getting people to level up. You go to a lot of micro gyms and they do not post anything on their business profiles. Like they're not marketing. And one of the things about strategic planning and one of the things we focus on is like, okay, so there's right. You have your marketing plan, you have your sales plan, right? Like how can you go and generate more leads, build more brand, or how can you reactivate your past prospects or convert the current prospects, right? That you have in your pipeline. I see that it was so easy for so long for micro gyms, right? It was just easy. It was cheap to run a business relatively. And, you kind of get relaxed and you're like, why do I need to go do this? They're just coming to me. Right. But definitely on the side of marketing and stuff like that, the simple stuff that you can do on a daily basis. But let's segue into strategic planning, because I know that we both we like this area and how do you tell us about that? How you work with gyms to do that?
Yeah.
Especially during these times.
Yeah. My philosophy is I start with the end in mind. And, I think that templates, I think that, done for you resources are helpful, but without a real understanding of what the goal is, it's going to be hard for owners to be happy. And what I mean by that is a lot of people have followed plays before that someone else has created, but it was their life plan. It was their play. And I'm looking at this from a standpoint of lifestyle and income. And those are the two big ones that are really important. And then when we factor in the third one that I'm passionate about is impact. And, how can we really take our scale, our trade, and have massive impacts in our local community, or even, some of the gyms I work with are expanding, nationally now. So the piece that I found is until we understand what that looks like, what do we want it to look like at 10 years, 3 years, 1 year, Well, until we go through all that exercise of really saying, hey, this is what we needed to do, then we can start breaking it into those 90-day cycles of saying, if we're going to get on track for our year goal, well, we got to understand clearly what that looks like and then work backwards from there. And it's the same thing with fitness too. It's like, where do you want to be in a year? And then we develop milestones. And one of the first milestones is typically 6 weeks to 90 days of just feeling on track. And I think it builds from there. So, those are the things that I look at when I think of a strategy. It starts with the end in mind. And that goes from the ownership side of truly understanding what they want to build. And then also from the client side, we really try to focus on who is your ideal client? Who do you love to work with? Because it sets the tone for two things. One, you get the client you love to work with. Two, you know how to go out and communicate to that client because you dive so intensively into what are they thinking about? What are their issues? What are their pains right now? What are their problems that they're taking home every night? So that we can actually communicate in a way of speaking their language. And they start to see us because they feel like everything that we're putting out is talking to them. And that's how you differentiate. And that's how we're finding our gyms are feeling like they're unique. They might have similar names hanging on, their buildings or, similar ads out there. But as we explore more channels of getting people interested in our businesses, it comes down to if you're not fired up and you're not specific with your message because it doesn't add up to those end goals, you're going to find yourself burned out. You're going to find yourself waking up one day and you're working too many hours and not enough money, or you have plenty of money, but you're not passionate about what you're doing, or it's someone else's client. So that's why I say no matter what the business, and in my field, we start with the end in mind and work backwards from there.
Awesome. Yeah. Great words, man. I know that we both have to jump. We got calls in a few. So I just want to end it by, how can people get a hold of you? Who would be a good fit if someone's looking to talk to you?
Yeah, awesome. I'm looking to connect with people that want to grow in this market, that really want a coach that has experience, that has a proven model for developing, gym businesses, and willing to commit to a process, stay open-minded. So if that sounds like you, reach out to me. You can find me on Facebook, Chris Thorndike. I have a free group where we produce trainings every single day. We're interacting, challenging you guys to think about things in a new way. Remember, a part of growth is also personal growth, not just business growth. And sometimes the biggest opportunity for business growth is actually working on yourself. So we talk about a lot of that inside there. It's called the Art of a Profitable Gym. And those are the two areas I'd say to get a hold of me.
Awesome. Well, Chris, great catching up before and during the show. And I look forward to talking to you soon. And I appreciate having you on, man.
Yeah, thanks for the invite.
All right. Talk to you soon.
This concludes another episode of the Be Battle Ready podcast. If you're looking to put it all together across all the areas of your life and be battle ready, come get connected with powerful leaders in our Be Battle Ready Facebook group, where we will be dropping new battles to win each day.